Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Happy Monday. Today is the 20th of May. Can you believe it's almost Memorial Day? It's exciting to see. We're finally hitting summer. It was a gorgeous weekend here in mid-Missouri. How was it where you are? Did you have any weather this weekend? Was it nice and warm and beautiful? I spent a lot of time outdoors, got my vitamin D, feeling wonderful. How about yourself? If you're not, then you're probably not drinking Founding Flavors coffee. What's wrong with you? The Wake Up America Show is brought to you in part by apforlibertyshop.com, where we bring you the absolute best, most delicious coffee in the world. We'll be glad to have you join us here regularly. The show's schedule is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Let's get this show on the road. All right. Donald Trump derangement syndrome. It's happening everywhere. Left, right, center, libertarian, socialist. They're so triggered by Donald Trump, and none more so perhaps than liberal comedian Bill Maher. However, in recent months, he's been saying a lot of things that made me think that maybe there is a cure for Trump derangement syndrome, perhaps even a vaccine.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Oh, shut up. We're going to talk about why I think Bill Maher is turning right. And we're going to play a little clip this morning, talk about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. 7:30 this morning, if I have time, because I'll probably spend a lot of time talking about the Bill Maher stuff. If we have time, I'd like to talk to you about Planet Fitness. They've got a new CEO, and he is doubling down on the policy to allow dudes into women's locker rooms.
How dare you?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, kind of pervy.
And look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady with her legs crossed.
Gross. All right. Well, shut up, Mr. President. That's enough out of you. If we have time in the first hour, we're going to talk about that. At 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to speak to Jeffrey Carson about Javier Milei's triumph. He fought the inflation monster, and he won. Congratulations to Javier Milei from Argentina. I'm getting a breaking news alert this morning that the International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu over Gaza war crimes. Keep an eye on that story. And of course, if you see any breaking news that's happening, I typically have a difficult time getting that kind of information while the show is live. And of course, the show is live, and I have, well, the staff is taking a holiday today, so I'm here alone. If you have any breaking news items that you'd like to share with us, see that number at the bottom of the screen. It's 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open at 573-319-1586. And sometimes you guys are texting me on the weekends. You ask me things like, what was the name of the artist that you played at the beginning of the show? And Austin, I really loved that artist. Or here's a guest that you should have on the show. Anytime, night or day, I'm checking the voicemails and I'm checking the text messages over there. So feel free to leave one, because it makes it more fun and entertaining when I'm putting the show together and have a chat with you. It's like we kind of have a nice little intimate relationship, if you will. Good morning, Robbie Thurman, Kermode Bear, Southcott. Haven't seen you in a while, Southcott. What's been happening? Quest Fanning, my lovely wife Stephanie, is here. Caleb Vanderfelt's butchered some chickens this weekend. Delicious. Joni Rankin, how are you doing? Urs Mommy is here. Kermode Bear and Frickety Frack. Nice to see everybody here. We're glad to have you. We'll speak to Jeffrey Carson at 8 a.m. Central Time, so about an hour from now. Jeffrey Carson traveled to Argentina last year. He is my former campaign manager for my U.S. Senate race. He works at a lot of nonprofits out of Washington, D.C. And he's going to join us live this morning to talk about his experience in Argentina and his thoughts about the future as Javier Milei shuts up his critics with a miracle turnaround of the economy and strong security policies. Javier Milei is swept into office on the promise of radical change for Argentina, and he has delivered. In a very short time. It's amazing. It's like these libertarian economic policies are actually effective, and I know that the left and the dissident right and the Nazis are like,
no, God! No, God, please! No.
Too bad. So sad. We now have a case of where libertarianism has worked. in reality, in our lifetime. I'm looking forward to sharing with you today this week's bonus content. You know what to do if you'd like to see today's mini documentary. Do you know how the whole bonus content program works? I produce a mini documentary every freaking day. Every damn day. I tell you what, sometimes it's hard to come up with themes, but this week's theme I'm really excited to share with you. But you can't know what the theme is because you haven't unlocked the bonus content. Austin, how do we unlock the bonus content? Well, you got to do either a Rumble Rant donation, or I even see we've got some friends joining us over on YouTube Live this morning. What's up, my YouTubers? Can I say YouTubers? Don't say YouTuber with a hard R. If you say, it's okay to say it if you're a YouTuber. YouTuber, but not a YouTuber. That's racist. Romina de Rosa, Ron, joining us live over at YouTube this morning. Hey, what's going on, Romina? Gracias. De nada. Nice to see you here. Chimichurri. And if you'd like to see today's bonus content and find out what the theme of the week is today, you either get Rumble Rants in, you make a purchase at apforlibertyshop.com like somebody just did. Congrats. Oh, Brock. I know you. You got yourself a nice little Benjamin Franklin Flintlock shirt over at apforlibertyshop.com. We're $28 towards the $60 goal now. If you make purchases from apforlibertyshop.com, and I know you do want some of our delicious coffee, Romina, you want some taco flavor kisses? Delicious founding flavor kisses. So head to apforlibertyshop.com, get yourself a box of coffee, or like our buddy Brock got himself an awesome Benjamin Franklin shirt. There's so many new products Stephanie and I put in the store every single day that you really should just go over there and browse and see what we're up to at apforlibertyshop.com. So almost halfway there, you unlock today's bonus content. You find out what the theme is for the week. And today is a concept that I've really been wanting to share with you all for a long time, but I just haven't had the opportunity. So today's mini documentary is a topic and a concept that I've really been looking to explore with you all on the show, but I don't really typically have time to weave it into a breaking news item or a story narrative. Today's the day that I get to talk to you a little bit about something I've been wanting to discuss for quite some time, if we hit that $60 bonus content goal by the end of the show. All right, Romina de Rosa, are you a Latino for Donald Trump? La buena vida, la economía, hazlo por tu familia. Latinos por Donald Trump. I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. All right, let's get to the news here. I think real-time host Bill Maher is turning right. And I know what a lot of people are going to say. He's not turning right. He would not say that he's turning right. It's just that the left has gone so far left that he is now looking at the progressives and thinking that they're all crazy, but he's really just the same that he was, 10 years ago. Well, that might be true to an extent. But whenever you guys are seeing him talking about Donald Trump and saying things like, where's my stinking headline? Bill Maher, bored by Trump dictator narrative, doesn't look to me like the world is just falling apart. I lost my nervous system under Trump once. I'm not doing it again, Bill Maher said. That's a change. That's a turnabout. And it's the one thing that has really, I think, held Bill Maher back from edging towards the right was the Trump derangement syndrome. But this is a sign that there is a cure for Trump derangement syndrome, and it's the wild and wacky progressive left. So give it up for Bill Maher. We're going to play a little bit of his monologue from this last weekend. I'm looking forward to reading his new book. He did an interview with the New York Times' Maureen Dowd, and he says that the warnings that Trump will become a dictator are boring to him. He said, when people come up to me and say, what are we going to do? I'm like, it doesn't look to me like the world is just falling apart. Maybe it will tomorrow. Look, I lost my nervous system under Trump once. I'm not doing it again. When he blows up the world, wake me. I can't put my nervous system on the line every day for every stupid tweet and every bonehead thing he does. You know what? Ya voy a votar por Donald Trump. Maher also said that Americans need to stop acting like the country was moving towards a civil war, adding, we have to see each other not as mortal enemies, but as merely roommates from hell. La buena vida, la economía, hazlo por tu familia. Latinos por Javier Milei. To me, Biden. To me, it says Biden. On the debate question, this is Bill Maher talking about the debates. He says the president, Joe Biden, was only doing it because he's losing. That's the reason why Biden has agreed to debates. To me, it says Biden knows he's losing because otherwise he wouldn't have agreed. Only the loser wants to debate. Good God, Bill. The comedian argued Biden had more to prove in the upcoming debates. Trump is a known commodity. They know he's going to be an asshole. He's going to be lurking and growling and not obeying the rules and everything else. But Biden, they want to see proof of life. True.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
Yeah, Dowd in this interview asked Maher if he ever felt like he was, quote, beating his head against the wall. He said he does, but that he added they had to keep sailing onward. He says, I don't want to hate half the country. I don't hate half the country. There you go, see? And I don't want America to get a divorce. Thank you, Bill. I don't hate half the country either. I don't want to hate half the country, and I don't want America to get a divorce. I know this probably makes me an outlier amongst libertarians, but that also makes me an anti-war libertarian then, doesn't it? More anti-war than the libertarians who are advocating for it, because there's no way that something like that happens without a civil war. Am I right? Fuck me, I guess, for my opinions. What else did I have from here, right? So Biden said, or Maher says that Biden only wants to debate because he's losing. Oh, and here's another example of why I think Bill Maher is turning right. Railing against the medical establishment, this story just came out 2 days ago, for being, quote, afraid to admit it was wrong on trans-identifying minors. So Bill Maher slams the medical establishment for being afraid to admit that it was wrong for promoting transgender procedures for minors. Maher made the remarks on his show this last Friday. And he was talking about this landmark study that was published in March in the UK by Dr. Hilary Cass that concluded that minors should not be given transgender treatments. Later that month, England's National Health Service permanently banned giving puberty blockers to minors in the UK. Ya voy a votar por Donald Trump. Yeah, did you see the Donald Trump clip where he was asking for a drug test for Joe Biden before the debate? Gee, I wonder why.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
Oh, God. From now on, it's going to be.
From now on, it's going to be America first, okay? America first.
That's right. You love to see it, Mr. President. We're looking forward to your triumphant return. Now, if you could just take a page out of the Javier Milei playbook, Mr. President, then things would just be so much better. Romina de Rosa, saludos desde Argentina, Genio. Viva la libertad, carajo. Yes, we're going to talk about, oh, Captain, my Captain, Javier Milei, in about 40 minutes. So if that's what you're looking for, Romina, just check it out 40 minutes from now. Stick around at least that long or come back. I'm looking at electionbettingodds.com. Do you guys remember Maxim Lott? I've had him a few times on the show. His website, electionbettingodds.com, right now shows the U.S. presidency, the chances of victory between Biden, Trump, Kennedy. Michelle Obama makes the list? Hold on. Wait a minute now. Let me pull this up on the screen for you here now. Electionbettingodds.com. How does this website work? I've explained it to you once more before, but the story is this. If people make bets on a political candidate overseas election betting markets. Then this site takes all of those prediction markets where people are betting their real money on the outcome of an election, and this is the result. So this is what people are actually betting their real money on. And what's fascinating too is it's updated every minute, so the odds will narrow as we get closer and closer. Typically, you'll start to see it get a lot closer. But at the moment, people who are betting their own money are showing 50.8% chance of winning. Joe Biden, second place, 40% chance of winning. Kennedy, 2.3. Michelle Obama, 2.2. Oh, Michael. Kamala Harris, she's got a 1.8%. She's moving up. Gavin Newsom, Nikki Haley, no thank you. Morning, Guocas. Nice to see you, brother. DeSantis, 0.6%. So electoral votes needed to win, 270, 268. Republican, 91% chance in Missouri. Yeah. There's the VP nods. Trump has yet to select a vice presidential candidate yet, but Tim Scott leads the pack at 18.7%. J.D. Vance, 12.5%. Elise Stefanik. You know what would have been interesting is to watch what happened to Kristi Noem. I'll bet that last week or 2 weeks ago, she was probably right around the top of this VP potentials. And then, we all know what happened. She kicked my dog. You kicked my dog, and now dog needs operation. Ramaswamy, only 3.9%. That's sad. We all like Vivek around here. Nikki Haley, don't you dare, Donald. Don't you dare. Byron Donalds from Florida. He's he's a pretty good pick. Noam, 1.5%. Sorry, Christy. And then 48% has no idea. Good morning. Good morning. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, glad to have you here. I'm Austin Peterson. Have you clicked the like button yet over on the stream? Why not? Why not just go ahead on over and click that like button today, right now? And if it's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, hit that follow button and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you join us regularly. The Wake Up America show streams live every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. We always are trying to cover breaking news items, big stories, big brain things with regular guests like Judge Ainer Napolitano. On Wednesdays, we've got a great lineup of guests. Typically, today's Monday, which of course means John Miltimore joins us at 8:30 a.m. to talk about why Uncle Hitler loved social justice. Winston, don't call him Uncle Hitler.
How dare you?
Urs Mommy is conspiracy theorizing over on the Rumble chat this morning. Ooh, what's the juice? She says it was most likely, she's talking about the death of the president of Iran, who was killed in a helicopter crash this weekend. She says it was most likely Mossad/CIA. I heard that theory this morning. That would actually make me feel better about American national security if that were the case, because it would mean that our security agencies are actually competent. My conspiracy theory is that it probably had a lot to do with his vaccination status, more likely. Yeah, I was actually reading about the other day about how the Moderna vaccine interacts negatively with massive explosions, fires, and then having your throat ripped open by wolves. It's dangerous. One minute you get the jab, the next minute your helicopter explodes. I'm telling you, if something happens before something, then it definitely caused the thing that happened after it. Is Bill Maher cured of his Trump derangement syndrome? Is he going to vote Republican this fall? Let's take a listen to his recent monologue to hear how he's doing these days.
Finally, new rule, someone, maybe AI, has to figure out a way to slow down time. Because what everyone has been saying to me lately is, I can't believe it's May. Oh, Americans, we do nothing but bitch about everything under the sun, but damn it, life goes by too fast.
Good point.
It's Memorial Day in a week? Christ, I might as well start my Christmas shopping. But it's May, a month I have been anticipating for a long time because my book comes out next week.
All right, I know that we're all like conservatives and libertarians here, and a lot of you don't like Bill Maher, but I'm actually kind of looking forward to his book. I enjoy his show.
I've waited my whole career to write one that is based on collecting the creme de la creme of these end-of-the-show editorials and reimagining them, but also cover some virgin territory. For example, I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of what historians of the future will say about us.
What do you think historians of the future will say about us? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Send me a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. What do you think that future historians will say about our civilization, the people of the United States in 2023?
Imagine it's the year 3024, and you're living in a colony on the planet Musk.
Now, it's funny. I was listening to this monologue. I'm going to go off on a brief little tangent here for a moment. I was listening to this monologue this weekend while I was mowing and considering, what would future historians say about our the people of our time now. And then I thought about the consideration of what would it be like if, 1,000 years from now, we are all, let's say that people who agree with Elon Musk or people who are broadly open-minded, tolerant, people like ourselves, the listeners of the Wake Up America show, more libertarian, open-minded types, and Elon Musk goes and starts a colony on Mars. Let me ask you a question. Would you want to live around these kinds of people? Would you want your community to be libertarians? At first, I know that for some people, the knee-jerk reaction might be yes. But as someone who's had 2 decades of libertarian activism, I don't know if for me, I don't think I would answer yes right away. I'm not saying no, but I will say that I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards no, and I've got a lot of good reasons for why I'm leaning towards no. I'm not saying no, I'm just leaning towards no. People of my own ideological ilk, if you will. If you could go and live on a planet Musk, would you do it? You would, because here's the thing. It's related, I think, a little bit to that conversation we kind of started a little bit earlier when we were talking about the country splitting apart, having a civil war. I know that a lot of libertarians are like, yeah, let's break up the country, let's secede and break into smaller independent republics and things like that. And I'm just kind of like, okay, well, so that's kind of the same concept here, right? We want to break apart. We hate each other so much that we want to rip this country apart, break into several independent sovereign republics. Okay. Would you really want to live with just people of your own ideological ilk? I mean, I'll tell you this. If it were just libertarians, if it were just the people that I've been around the last 20 years and part and parcel of the libertarian movement, just those people, no. I think absolutely not. I would not want to live in this independent sovereign republic of Ancapistan. It would be deregulated. That would be nice. There would be a market economy. That would be nice. They would be selling heroin to 5-year-olds. That would be bad. I kind of like diversity, says Stephanie for Liberty, my wife, too. Yeah, I kind of like having people around that are sort of acting as a bit of a check on my confirmation bias, because we're all guilty of confirmation bias. We're all guilty of trying to confirm our biases and relying on our gut instincts over reason and logic. Not to say that you shouldn't have a healthy sense of instinct or a gut, or that you shouldn't trust your gut to a certain extent. But I think we can over rely on it. And I think that if you're in a community where you have a diverse array of opinions, obviously I would prefer to outnumber the statists. I would prefer that the, tolerant, more classical liberal viewpoint of a limited government and a market economy and a free speech and of firearms rights, I would prefer that our people be in the majority. And we should work towards that. But I'm not entirely sure that I would want to live in a community entirely made up of libertarians or just conservatives, right? I would absolutely not want to live in a community made up entirely of communists. I wouldn't want to live in a community entirely of socialists. Right? I wouldn't want to live in an entire. Would you want to live in an entirely religious community? Would you want to live like in a Mormon cult out in the woods? They have things like that, right? Would you want to go live with the Amish? Some people might. Some people might, and they do. There are a lot of people who like to live like that. I don't want to live like that. It's nice to get a little taste of this, little flavor of that, right, without having the heavy hand of the state forcing us to be entirely one way or another. A little bit of ideological diversity isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing to keep people checked and balanced. Cecilia over in the chat says, when you're with like-minded people, there's not thinking outside your own ideas, so growth would be difficult. No one is challenging how you think and making you grow in your beliefs. Yes, Cecilia, exactly. And thank you for the donation. So we're at $33 towards the $60 goal today of unlocking today's bonus content. Whitey White 14 over in Rumble. We've seen him a few times here. Whitey, we're glad to have you. He says, Jays always love diversity. I think he means Jews. That's why once they're in power in a country in the West, they push for mass immigration and open borders. Diversity plus proximity equals war throughout history. Okay. Well, that is the white nationalist view on things, and it is a take, but that's not how I feel. So what will future historians say about us? Let's continue.
Formerly Mars. What will the historians say about the Americans of 2024? Well, probably that we were self-absorbed, algorithmically enslaved, on drugs, and worshipped a god named Apple. But what they won't do is write about the very thing that consumes us, our petty squabbles. In the myopia of the present, our partisan differences make each side believe they're nothing like the other side. Libtards and deplorables. Historians will disagree. They won't see red on one side and blue on the other. You're thinking of Jaws 3D.
Not that funny. Why are we clapping? But probably true.
But historians...
I mean, here's the thing. Let me ask you a question. In order to tell whether what Bill Maher is saying is right or not, all you have to do is ask yourself this. What do we look at? I mean, can you even, for example, look at the history of the United States and say that you are keenly aware of the differences of the ideological factions of the American people in, say, the 1830s? Right? Can you look back on that time period and say, well, there was this and then there was that? Well, how about this? Here's another time period. How about the 1880s? Right? Do you remember the mugwumps? Right? And their move from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party and the Bourbon Democrats. Do you remember them? Right? Well, what do you remember about the Gilded Age? I mean, obviously none of us were alive then, but when you look back at the 1880s of the United States, what do we really consider is the sort of the what was it that defined that time period of U.S. history? Right? Do you think about the factional fighting between the mugwumps and the Republicans and the Democrats? Right? Is that the first thing that comes to mind? Probably not. You're probably thinking of like Carnegie Steel. You're probably thinking of John D. Rockefeller. You're thinking about trusts, and you're probably thinking about the Native Americans and the end of the American West and barbed wire being rolled out across the prairie and the gold rush of California and San Francisco. These are the things that define an era. People are far more interested in those bigger concepts than they are the factional squabbling of politics, things that you and I, perhaps, we engage in on a daily basis. Will philosophers and historians 100 to 200 to 1,000 years from now look back on the petty squabbles of Republicans and Democrats and consider them to be the major defining point of that era? It's not. It's more the things that truly move civilization that get people talking and get historians interested in what truly defined a people. Do you agree or disagree? I would be curious your take on this one.
See the character of a people as a whole. The Scots were clannish, the Spartans stoic, the Mongols expansionist, the Greeks were too into anal. And for us, it will be no different. Historians will say we're also too into anal. But also the other thing, they will see us as a singular people with the same pathologies and unappealing traits on both sides, traits that simply manifest themselves differently. For example, I believe they will say Americans of our era were unscientific, one-sided.
I completely agree there. Joni Rankin says that she's thinking back 100 years ago. This would have been the Dust Bowl. Yes, Stephanie and I actually watched The Grapes of Wrath, the old black and white version, just the other day, where those residents of Oklahoma had to go out west to try and find a better life in California. And she actually didn't know the story of the Dust Bowl. There are a lot of Americans that don't know about what happened to American agriculture in the 1920s and 30s. The Great Depression was caused, yes, in part by a stock market, but people place, I think, a little bit too much significance and importance into the stock market as regards to the overall economy. But we did have a massive actual climate change, which occurred in the United States. They say in part it was because we had knocked down so many trees. But the Dust Bowl, which contributed to the dearth of growth of agriculture here in the United States. So definitely something to consider.
I thought climate change was a hoax. One thought gender was a construct. One warred against Mother Nature, one against motherhood. One doubts evolution, one wears masks when they're alone in the car.
It has been weird. I mean, I kind of look at them the same way. The people who deny evolution is the same as the people who are wearing masks in cars. We are a very conspiratorial nation. We are a superstitious nation, and for many, I think that the lack of understanding or belief in science is the wearing the mask alone in the car is the perfect example of this. Because it's always the right that's painted as anti-science. Oh, they don't believe in evolution or things like that, right? But the left, if anything, the pandemic proved the left is just as anti-science as the more extreme elements of the right. Am I right? Love to hear your thoughts on this and more. Send me a text at 573-319-1586. Andy Opperman's back from vacation. What's up, Andy? Good to see you, brother. He says that he thinks that we will be recorded much the same way that the end days of the Romans are. Not everyone was oblivious. They raised alarms, but to no avail. Good stuff, Andy. We appreciate you and welcome back.
Which is kind of like wearing a condom to jerk off. In medical schools now, professors are so fearful of being labeled transphobic, they have to apologize for saying words like male, female, and pregnant woman. Katie Herzog writes, some of
medical schools now being required to deny biological sex. Professors are apologizing for saying male and female. University of California medical professor apologized for saying pregnant women.
Like male, female, and pregnant woman. Katie Herzog writes, some of the country's top medical students are being taught that humans are not, like other mammals, a species comprising two sexes.
See, this sounds like the kind of shit that people who deny evolution say, right? Some of the country's top medical students are being taught that humans are not, like other mammals, a species comprising two sexes. I mean, this is the Scopes monkey trial. This is the perfect example of the people. I didn't come from no monkey. My grandpa wasn't no monkey.
The notion of
but it's the left.
Sex, they are learning, is just a man-made creation. Okay.
The notion of sex is just a man-made creation. Good God.
But generally, the people with breasts and vaginas who give birth are the women, and the ones with the penis hogging the remote are men. Historians will say that as a people, Americans lost our rationality. They'll say we were conspiracy theorists. The right wanted to believe that Obama was born in Kenya. The left wanted to believe in Trump's P-tape. We have January 6th truthers, but the Washington Post reports that there are also now October 7th truthers who believe Hamas never raped anybody and the hostages all died of natural causes.
I mean, look at what happened with the Iranian president helicopter crash. They're already blaming it on the CIA and Mossad. They got out the fog machines and were like blowing up the Kandahar mountains with fogs. It's because people are fearful. People live their lives in terror. They are addicted to fear. And that is why usually the biggest podcasters, the biggest talk show hosts, the people who do what I'm doing right now, the ones with the biggest audiences are the ones who scare the shit out of you, right? I'd make a lot more money selling gold if I told you that the economy is going to crash, that your entire wealth, your bank is going to go under, the FDIC is not going to be there to insure you when it's gone, civil war is coming, we're all going to die, but to buy gold now. I can't do that to you, right? I think it's a good idea for you to buy gold for your portfolio because I think it's a hedge against inflation and because it's something that you absolutely can maintain if the shit hits the fan. But I don't know if the shit's going to hit the fan. I can't tell you that, right? I have a conscience and I have to sleep at night, and I'm willing to take the financial hit of the 6 or 7 to 10 to 15 to who knows $150,000 a month that I'm giving up in not lying to you about what I think we're going in the future or what might be happening. Because here's the reality is that the people who want to sell you shit, and listen, I do want to sell you shit, okay? I've got shit for you to buy over at apforlibertyshop.com, but I'm not going to do it by lying to you. I'm not going to tell you something's going to happen that's not going to happen. Now, could a windstorm come and blow your shirt off and then you won't have a shirt and maybe you should go to apforlibertyshop.com and buy an extra one so you'll have it ready to go? Okay, sure, fine. Should you go buy Founding Flavors and fill up your happening bunker against nuclear war if it comes so that you can trade it for like gold you would like any other commodity? Yeah, sure, why not? But the truth is that especially when it comes to the media, is that there is an incentive to keep you afraid because people who are fearful are much more in a buying mood. Listen, I'm an expert on this, okay? I understand quite on a deeper level how this system works, okay? And the thing that I know as someone who's worked in the mainstream media, where I've worked in television, I've worked in radio, I've worked in film, I've worked in podcasting, I can tell you that the biggest people in this industry are the biggest liars because nobody wants to hear the truth, okay? It doesn't sit right on the ears. It clangs. And I'll tell you, I have to be real careful a lot of times with what I say on this show because I know that I can only kind of like push it out so far, even to people who have open minds, because the fact is that most people don't want to hear it, right? And especially people who are addicted to fear. I'll tell you, fear is the kind of thing, it gets you that adrenaline jolt. And you know what we have in this country? We have a lot of bored, desperate housewives sitting at home with nothing to do but sit around all day and take edibles and watch conspiracy theories online because it's more exciting than their lives. It's way more exciting to think that the president of Iran's helicopter crashed because the Jewish space lasers ignited the fog machines that set it off in the Kandahar mountains so that his plane would then crash right where there just happened to be a den of wolves that came along and ripped his throat out. That's way more interesting than assuming that, it just happened to be a foggy day in the Kandahar mountains and the helicopter went down and it crashed as a result of natural causes. It's the same reason why people love to conspiracy theorize about John F. Kennedy getting shot because it's way more fun and because people despise chaos. This is why people prefer statism to liberty too, because people do not like chaos. And this is why I say a lot of times conspiracy theorists you scratch a conspiracy theorist and you will find an authoritarian. And I know that is the kind of truth that people don't want to hear, but the truth is that when you are fearful that the world is not being controlled, that things might just be random, that chaos is inevitable, and that entropy means everything turns to shit eventually. People are terrified of that. So what do? They grab on, they latch on to order, or they demand order, right? They turn into little Adolf Hitlers, right? They turn into little Joseph Stalins, they turn into little Mussolinis. And they do that because they are terrified, one, of death. Two, they are terrified of the idea that no one is in control of the universe. The thing is that people would rather believe that the Illuminati or the Rockefellers or the Carnegies, who are the people that are controlling the world today? The George Soroses of the world. People will rather believe that they're in control of everything. The Jews, right? Who's a big Jew? George Soros, big Jew. The Jews, right? That a conspiracy of Jews. There's only 16 million of them, by the way, in the world, but somehow they control all the world's global economy. Which, if they were that powerful, they were actually that credible, and that they could control the global economies. And there's only 16 million of the Jews. And listen, I tell you, it's got to be even smaller group than 16 million because that are actually controlling things. Because I'll tell you, my wife Stephanie, she does not have time with all of her hustling and homemaking. Which reminds me, Stephanie's new hustling and homemaking video comes out today. Make sure you check that out at 9:05 a.m. Right after the show is over, you can view Stephanie's new hustling and homemaking video, 4-ingredient cookie, peanut butter cookie surprise. Airgat Lamb says, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a skeptic. I am also a skeptic, but what kind of skeptic are we talking about here? But that's why the whole, the JFK conspiracies, those exist because, one, the Warren Report Commission was completely screwed up. And in my opinion, the conspiracy was in the cover-up because many of the government officials who should have protected Kennedy were asleep on the job. But that's neither here nor there. But it's more interesting or fun to think about a massive cabal. LBJ shot him from the back of the vehicle, and they made it look like it was this, or it was, it was the guy who was underneath the manhole cover, right, shooting him from below, and that's why his head went back. It's people. It makes people feel uncomfortable. The idea that the most powerful man in the world, who people really loved at the time, JFK was like almost universally loved at the time, could be brought low by such a nobody, such a nothing. Lee Harvey Oswald was a nobody, a nothing. That how could somebody so insignificant kill someone of such significance? That is because the world is chaos. And when you hear that word, when you hear that concept, when they hear the world is chaos, it is a chaotic universe and random chance of things that are happening, coincidences are actually more common than you might think. Most people, they are pattern seeking, they engage in patternicity, and they're pattern seeking behavior. We all engage in pattern seeking behavior. It's how we recognize faces in clouds and in M&M's display across the table. Oh, look, it's a duck. And what happens is that we confuse chance and probabilities with planning and conception, right? That the chaos that is there. It's not to say that there isn't planning. It's not to say that conspiracies don't exist. They absolutely do. But when you have a hyper focus or a hyper awareness on things, it can become a pathology, and it causes you to make what we call type 1 errors. I've talked about this on the show quite a bit. What is a type 1 error? Just a reminder, a type 1 error is that you think that there's a tiger in the grass every time that the wind blows, right? The grass is rustling, and therefore there must be a tiger in the grass, right? A type 2 error is the grass is rustling. It's probably not a tiger, but there is a tiger in the grass, okay? And here's the thing. The reason why there are way more people who commit type 1 errors, conspiracy theory types, conspiracy brain, I call it, than people who consider most of the time it's not a tiger, it's probably not a tiger. The reason that there are way more conspiracy brain types than they are skeptic brain types is because the people who make type 1 errors tended to be safer from getting eaten because every time there's a rustle in the grass, their ass is on the move. Right? They're running. Okay. They're not going to take a chance that it might not be a tiger in the grass. They're going to always pick up their bags and move. Right. But what's the problem with that type of thinking? Well, you live your life in fear. You live your life in anxiety. You're going to live a shorter lifetime because everything to you, there's always the terror around. The boogeyman is around the corner. Right. Now, in that sense, those people are going to live longer than the type 2 people. To an extent, because the type 2 people are going to go, well, the probability of there actually being a tiger here is low. And then every once in a while, the tiger does come, and the tiger eats the type 2 error person, and that's why there are fewer of those people around. We need both. We need both. We have to be careful of not running every time the grass rustles. And we also have to consider that sometimes when the grass rustles, it is a tiger. What do you say? Eh? Just got a new order. New order. And you unlock the bonus content, which means that you're going to get to view the bonus content now instead of the commercial break. Thank you very much. We appreciate all your support. Thanks for going to apforlibertyshop.com. Enjoy the bonus content on today's theme. You'll find out now on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Another episode of our Wake Up America Show mini documentary series. This week's theme, we look at the times that real libertarianism has been tried. Today, we're diving into the fascinating tale of economic transformation that took place in Chile during the 1970s and 1980s, spearheaded by a group of economists known as the Chicago Boys. This story is a powerful example of how libertarian principles can reshape an economy. However, it's also a tale intertwined with the dark reality of a ruthless dictatorship. In the early 1970s, Chile was a country struggling with severe economic instability. Inflation was rampant, the economy was in disarray, and the political landscape was turbulent. Amidst this chaos, a group of Chilean economists, primarily educated at the University of Chicago under the tutelage of Milton Friedman and Arnold Harberger, emerged with radical ideas. They came to be known as the Chicago Boys. These economists were trained in the liberal economic theories of the Chicago School, which emphasized free markets, deregulation, and privatization. Initially, their ideas were largely ignored in Chile. That changed dramatically after the 1973 military coup that brought General Augusto Pinochet to power. Pinochet, despite being a ruthless dictator infamous for his brutal methods, including throwing communists out of helicopters, recognized the need for economic reform. He turned to the Chicago Boys to overhaul Chile's economy. They implemented a series of free market reforms detailed in a document known as El Ladrillo, or the Brick. The Chicago Boys' policies were bold and unprecedented. They slashed government spending, deregulated industries, and privatized state-owned companies. Their goal was to reduce inflation, stimulate economic growth, and integrate Chile into the global market. This approach, often referred to as shock therapy, was designed to jolt the economy back to life through rapid and sweeping changes. Initially, the reforms were painful. The GDP fell by about 15% by 1982, and income inequality surged, a shadow that still lingers over Chile today. However, over time, the Chilean economy began to recover and grow at an impressive rate. By the late 1980s, Chile was hailed as a model of economic reform, often referred to as the miracle of Chile. The success of these reforms caught the attention of global leaders like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, who admired and emulated Chile's policies. Free trade agreements, tax cuts, and structural adjustments became the cornerstones of conservative economic strategies worldwide. Today, Chile stands as one of the most prosperous countries in Latin America. Its transformation from economic chaos to stability and growth is a testament to the power of free market policies. However, the legacy of the Chicago Boys is complex. While they helped to turn the economy around, their association with Pinochet's brutal regime casts a long and dark shadow.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to wake up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at ap4libertyshop.com. Good morning, Rise to Freedom. Is the music getting you torqued? Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Everything is fun, footloose, and fancy-free. Did you like the bonus content this morning? The true story of the Chicago boys, how they remade the Chilean economy with free market policies, but a dark shadow of a dictatorship that loomed over the top of them. Hope you enjoyed that. This week's theme on the Wake Up America show will be times that real libertarianism has been tried. So each day we will produce for you a mini documentary about times in history, and perhaps even today we should talk about Javier Milei, times that real libertarianism has been tried and succeeded. Of course, on a long enough timeline, we are all dead, as John Maynard Keynes has said. Ere get lamb, he noticed it was Ronan, oldie but a goodie, yes. Musical artist was Scandroid, one of my favorite synthwave artists. We're going to have Jeffrey Carson on the show here in about 5 minutes from now to talk about this incredible story. Argentina's Javier Milei shuts up his critics. Well, they'll never shut up, will they? With his miracle turnaround of the economy and strong security policies. This was the #1 article on Fox News over the weekend. President Javier Milei continues to stun his critics with an economy that has outperformed expectations and continues along an ambitious path for national security, including pursuit of a NATO global partnership. How does that make you feel? Some people like it, some people don't. Daniel Reisbeck, he's a policy analyst at the Cato Institute, said to Fox News, the fact that you have a president, head of state, who is defending the free market, who is defending the role of entrepreneurs and businessmen as creators of value, and just defending deregulation when the tendency in Latin America and much of the West has been to regulate the economy, I think it's a positive, not only for Argentina, but for the region as a whole and maybe beyond. Let's be honest, it's good for the whole world to finally see in the modern era an example. And yes, we did produce that documentary to talk a little bit about what happened in Chile, but many of those reforms in Chile that happened in the 1970s have been rolled back. And we're starting to see that as they have started to regulate their economy more, their GDP has fallen. Sarah for Liberty joining us live. What's up, Sarah? How you doing, sexy? Nice to see you. Just in time for this. Morning, Liberty lovers. Glad to have you here, Sarah. Appreciate you joining us. The International Monetary Fund, and this is another thing that I think will make some people pause, has agreed to release a tranche of loans due to Argentina under a bailout program, thanks to Milei's government managing to create a fiscal surplus in the previous fiscal quarter to bring inflation down. So their inflation rate was 287%. Poverty was starting to deepen. Citizens were taking to the streets with strikes and protests against its policies, but the monthly inflation rate was 25% in December when Milei first took office. Now it's 8% by April, marking the first single-digit inflation rate in over 6 months. Let's give it up to Javier Milei. Now, my homeboy, Jeffrey Carson, is waiting on the line. So let me go get him backstage real quick, and I'll be right back here on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Don't go away. All right, welcome back. I told you I wasn't going to make you wait long. Let's talk about the Lion of Argentina with the Lion of the USA. Jeffrey Carson, he's an international traveler. He's been to Argentina well, at least once for sure, maybe more than once. We'll talk to him about that. He's joining us here live, and here he is. Jeffrey Carson, my former U.S. Senate campaign manager. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It is so nice to be on this show with you. I think this is our first time, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Jeff. I've tried to get you on before, but I think when I did, you were in Argentina the last time I reached out. But hey, thanks so much for joining us here, Jeff. I'm excited to have you get your take. I know you're really excited to see what Javier Milei is doing in Argentina to make it great again. Give us your take, because you were there before Milei. So tell us a little bit about what the country was like before Milei took over, and then we'll analyze his results.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. It's funny we are talking about this because, for quick context, when did I call? I must have called you about him maybe like 3 months ago. I called kind of out of the blue. I was like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Argentina. I've been so excited about him and about what hopefully, right, fingers crossed, he's doing for that country and all the economic opportunities that will come from it. But, yes, to answer your question, I was there, I turned 40 a couple of years ago. And as I was getting closer and closer to that birthday, I was like, man, I got to take some time off. I got to go do my thing, right? I'm a vagabond at heart. So I was like, all right, where do I want to go? I want to go backpack. I think I want to go to South America. I think I want to go to Argentina. Let's come up with some reasons why. And the World Cup was upcoming. This is I'm not the biggest soccer fan in the world, but when it comes to the World Cup, man, I'll go nuts, right? And so the World Cup was going to be in the Middle East somewhere, I think in like Qatar. And I was like, well, I'm not going to Qatar. So Argentina. Why not Argentina? They haven't won it in a long time. It's Messi's last one, probably, right? And so where would a cooler place be than to be in Argentina to experience the World Cup? So, short story, I went to Argentina for 2 months as a part of a backpacking trip around South America, and I got to experience what it was like in Argentina. And I know you want to get to the economic stuff, and of course, that's important, but it's just really important for, I think, your viewers to understand. Even before Milei took over, Argentina is just an incredible country. It was rich country, not rich economically, very poor economically, but rich history, rich culture, really friendly people, right? I mean, some of the most beautiful scenes I have ever seen in terms of the nature, way down south in Patagonia. I mean, just really beautiful. And I remember thinking down there, man, what would this country be like if it actually had a even remotely somewhat competent and not corrupt government? right? Like, it's so crazy to see these people hustle and strive and like just grind for every dollar, for every peso, you know, and just see like truly like this economy is in shambles and you can see it everywhere. And yet the people are still happy. They're still friendly. They're still like, they understood English pretty well, right? My Spanish is not so hot. So, you know, they were willing to help me. I met a ton of friendly people down there, a ton of people who were willing to help me and answer questions and like show me around. And it was like an amazing experience, despite the fact that you could tell in a number of ways that I'm sure we'll get to, like that this government sucks ass, like in short. And I honestly remember thinking back at the time, it would just be amazing if they didn't have this shitty government. And then fast forward, 18 months, and it's like, holy shit, right? Like Milei, this is the dream, right? The libertarian gets elected, like what's going to happen? So,
Jeffrey, talk to
so
us.
yeah, let me stop there. But
yeah, so let's get to the economic question. Like, what was it like, trying to make transactions there? Operate, you're a digital nomad, right? You've got dollars, you need pesos. How do you buy things? How do you sell things? How does inflation impacting you? Talk to us a little bit about those machinations. Just so then we could talk about what Milei has changed.
Yeah, this is fun, man. All right, so first, as a tourist, right, as someone coming in, from the outside, before I even went, you kind of Google like how do things work in Argentina, and it was a very unique place in a lot of ways. One way, it was very unique because there were two exchange rates back then. There were two different exchange rates. There was what they called the blue dollar rate, which was the real exchange rate, right? That's the market exchange rate. And when I arrived in, I think, late November of 2022, right? The actual exchange rate was like 300 pesos to a dollar, right? But as I said, there's two. So there was a bullshit exchange rate as well, the official exchange rate, right? And so, you fly into the international airport, you go to the currency exchange, you don't get the real exchange rate. You get the government mandated one, which is about half, right? So your dollars don't buy 300 pesos to a dollar. At the government official one, you get about 150 to 1, right? So imagine you're a tourist, you go down there. If you don't know any better, like my parents would have no clue. They wouldn't know any better. They would just go to the bank, to the ATM. They would go to the official currency exchange, and they would get housed by 50% in terms of buying power. The same thing applied for the most part if you tried to use a credit card down there. Now, when I arrived, they were starting to kind of, I guess I could say, liberalize that a little bit. There were, I think Visa, some credit cards with like on the Visa platform were starting to give you closer to the blue dollar rate. But the short story is you really had to do research and talk to locals and figure out, how does this work? Where do I go and get dollars at the blue exchange rate, as opposed to get housed by the government imposed exchange rate?
So
right?
You would go, if you wanted to exchange your currency, you did not go to where we would normally go. Stephanie and I went to Japan last year. We were in the airport. We went to the monetary exchange there. We got yen. We got a decent rate. The currency exchange rate there, very favorable to the dollar. If you did something like that in Argentina, if you went to the Argentine bank that's there in their airport in Buenos Aires, you're going to get hosed. So you're better off going down the street in Buenos Aires and finding a guy standing outside the bank like a ticket scalper kind of a situation, right?
Yes, although, and that's initially what I thought it was like. Like you literally had to go, like the first couple of times I exchanged, dollars for pesos. Of course, I at least knew better not to go to the bank, but I would go like downtown Buenos Aires and ask around. Like you ask like the hostel or you ask the hotel people, like where's the guy, right? And then you got to go find the guy. You got to go find like a little, it's like a newspaper stand.
It's like
right?
crack.
And you like sneak in and you're like, what's going on here? And you like walk up to the newspaper stand and you're like, pesos, dólares? Yeah, okay, let's do this. And then they let you into this little back room in the back of the newspaper stand. You got to lock the door behind you. It's like you're in this little tight area. And the guy's like, what's up? And you're like, yo, can you hook it up? And he's like, yeah, I'll give you $2.90. And I'm like, but I've got $100 bills, which by the way, $100 bills got you a higher exchange rate, right? Than if you had like 20s. Like clean, crisp new hundreds got you a slightly higher exchange rate. So he'd be like, you got hundreds? Sí, señor, por supuesto, right? Of course I got hundreds, right? And then, you give him $100 and you get like, 290,000 pesos back, right? By the way, by the time, by the time I left, I remember, I'm sorry, 29,000 pesos. My math was slightly off on that one, but
like
by the time I left, like 4 months later, by the time I flew home, when I arrived, the real rate was 300 to 1. By the time I flew home, like 4 or 5 months later, the rate was 500 to 1 ballpark. That's about a 60% inflation rate in 4 months, 4.5 months. I mean, that's wild, right? Now, listen, the last thing I'll say here is once I kind of learned a little bit more about how things work, I realized that you could actually go to Western Unions down there. Western Union is huge down there because the Western Union, it depends on which one you go to. A lot of them would not do this, but if you found the right one, they would give you the blue dollar rate as well. It was just kind of touch and go. You had to, again, still talk to locals and figure out which stores would hook you up and which stores would like just not give you money, right? They'd be like, no, we're not doing that. Sorry.
A lot of people would probably balk at doing something like that. It's especially a lot of foreign tourists and Americans. They are concerned about getting involved in shady business practices. It's funny because it reminds me a little bit of when I used to live in New York. I would go to Chinatown, and they would have a storefront set up, and then you would say, "Where's the real goods?" And they would actually have this sliding door that you would go down into like this scary little basement and stuff or whatever. Or like they would have like a hidden door in the apartment complex and you would like go through to the other side. And that's where they had all the real purses or things like that they would sell that they couldn't do because they were the knockoffs or whatever. I just wanted to go and see it. I wasn't buying Gucci purses or anything, but the point is that most people, like our friend JD Berenson over in the chat right now, he says he's headed to Argentina next year. He says it sounds shady as F. It is shady as F, but that's what the point is. Javier Milei is trying to bring this out of the darkness.
And good news for your friend in the chat, right? So if we're able to in a little bit, I'd love to go back. I just gave you the viewpoint from the tourist. I want to give you the viewpoint from the local as well. I think that's probably even more important maybe for your viewers, right? Because these are the people who are now experiencing the Milei thing. If we can go back to that, I'd love to. But just to talk to your boy in the chat, this is the good news. And this is reason number 4,562 why I distrust the media, because they're misreporting this fact. But the good news is there are no longer two exchange rates. That was one of the things Milei did when he first got elected, is he said, we don't need two rates. We don't need a bullshit rate that is fake and not oriented towards the market and a real rate. So he got rid of the fake rate, right? And he simplified everything. He said, no, we're just going to have the actual rate because the rate is the rate, guys. We can't pretend. We can't pull shit out of our ass. Can I curse on here, by the way?
Try and keep it to a minimum. I don't.
Okay.
It's legal. We're not on the air on radio, but I try and make it family friendly. Like Sarah Sanchez is in the car this morning with her little kids, so let's just try and PG-13.
I'm sorry, Sarah Sanchez. I will.
Okay.
I will keep a lid on that.
Thank you.
So forgive me. So all Milei did was get rid of the baloney rate and allow for the actual market rate to exist. And you know how the media covered that? Almost exclusively, right? Oh, libertarian takes office and immediately, right, the currency exchange gets cut in half. Yeah, wrecking the economy. The currency exchange is cut by 50% in terms of the dollars being able to be purchased. The implication, of course, being the exchange rate, fell like a rock because of Milei's election, which is just totally, absolutely wrong, right? What are you gonna do?
Okay, well, let's talk about what's really happened, because in this article that was trending #1 on Fox News over the weekend says Argentina's Milei shuts up critics. Probably not true, with miracle turnaround of economy. Definitely true. And his strong security policies. So Milei won the presidency last November, started to take over officially really in January, and he has taken the monthly inflation rate from 25% down to 8.8%. The budget surplus, $589 million, record surplus. And he has also begun some small level of deregulation, which he is allowed to do as president. However, in order for there to be a massive deregulatory agenda and for dollarization to go through, he's going to need a bigger turnout in next year's elections. That's the political thing. But on the economic question here, Jeff, some of the people who are critics of Milei here in the United States, domestic critics of Milei from the libertarians, is they're saying that he's really not doing what he promised he would do with dollarization. And they're saying that this idea to go and get a bailout from the IMF, the billions of dollars that he needs to get his country up and running, and to take out loans from the IMF is a big problem. How would you respond to some of those critics of his dollarization, wait and see program, and then the question of taking the money from the IMF? Your thoughts?
Uh, Quick on the IMF, obviously, that's what the foreign regime and the foreign regime, if you will, basically, this is like almost 100 years of the Peronistas, right? Which is like, it's like the worst of crony capitalism / socialism / corruption, right? For just decades and decades and decades, not quite 100 years, but I mean, just many decades of successively worse and worse governments with a few coups thrown in there for good measure, right? That went to like military dictatorships. But it just, I mean, awful, awful, the worst kind of government you can have. And all Milei has done when he's come in, and by the way, that former regime, or you could say successive regimes, they took IMF loans like there was no tomorrow, right? And of course, all those loans come with strings, and those strings and all the things that Argentina did in terms of the ridiculous, debt and the money printing and everything, obviously had tremendously negative effects on the people. In fact, great segue into what I wanted to talk very quickly. If I could go back to, I told you what it was like for me as a tourist, but for the locals I met. In fact, I actually, for a couple of weeks, started dating a local Argentinian in Buenos Aires. And she was telling me about, it was great. It was a great country. Again, highly recommend it. But I remember her telling me how locals in Buenos Aires, she was like a white collar worker, right? Like, she relatively affluent, right? But the government imposed a dollar limit, a US dollar limit on what she could spend each month. And they monitored it. So she could only spend or save $200 US currency each month. Because you can imagine if your inflation rate is 100% year over year, all you're trying to do when you make pesos, right? That's what you make for your job. So you're immediately trying to get out of pesos as soon as you can, right? You're not going to sit there and watch yourself lose 100% year over year, right? Or more. So all the Argentinians, are trying to do all the time, especially previously, was immediately when they get their peso paycheck, exchange it for dollars. But the government knew that, and because the government and the economy was so crappy, the government had to force people to keep pesos. Basically, they forced people to lose value on their own hard-earned pesos. So they mandated a $200 US cap. That applied to things like Netflix. So she had Netflix, which was, I think she said it was $11 US a month, which applied against her monthly $200 US cap and took it down to, what is it, 189. It's mind-boggling bonkers. So all they would do is do everything they could under the table to get US hard-earned cash currency, put it under the mattress, and that was the economy. I mean, that's it. And if they wanted to go buy a car or buy a big ticket item, no one was doing it with a credit card because of the taxes and the fees. Not tourists, not locals. So people would literally take, like drug dealers, they would take backpacks of currency to go buy like a flat screen TV, because that's the only way you could do it. I mean, because the highest peso denomination when I was there was 1,000 pesos. And that was equivalent to about $2, $2.50 when I was there.
It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing, like the way that they impose these kinds of price controls and monetary controls, and how the United States has done similar things here to try and control inflation, stagflation. For example, a lot of people don't know that in American history that for a period it was actually illegal to own gold in this country because of what
thank you, FDR.
FDR issued an executive order that confiscated gold from American citizens. And it wasn't until Richard Nixon closed the gold window, I think in 1971, that it was finally legal for Americans to own gold again. But for like a 40-year period or so, it was illegal for American citizens to own gold. And these are the kinds of price controls and wage controls and things, the monetary controls that tyrannical authoritarian governments do to try and control the economy, rather than to allow free floating of currencies and free exchange of precious metals and commodities. That might actually bring prosperity to our nation, because of course dictators and tyrants never want to let go of control, and money, controlling the money supply is like, it's like controlling the tap. It's like putting a kink in the hose at the very right where it comes out at the very top of the economy. And that's why I love seeing things like the news that Thomas Massie is bringing up his bill to end the Fed. I don't think it's going to happen. But we could spend all day talking about these economic questions, and I'd like to move on, Jeff, to the foreign policy questions. But very briefly, if you don't mind, let me just reset because it's a live show. So frequently, a lot of people will jump into the middle of a conversation and they might wonder who we are. I'm Austin Peterson, the host of the Wake Up America show. Thank you for joining us. Please do click that like button. If it's your first time watching the Wake Up America show and you enjoy this content, the show schedule is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a live show, so click that follow button before you leave today and come back and join us for the regular schedule. We'd love to have you be a regular guest. Now, speaking of Jeffrey Carson, he's a digital nomad joining us to talk about what he saw and experienced while he was in Argentina and his thoughts about the new libertarian president, Javier Milei. I've been very interested in how Javier Milei has been conducting diplomacy. Now, the breaking news today is that he's in a little bit of hot water because I think he traveled to Spain and he said that the wife of the Spanish prime minister was corrupt, and now they're like talking about pulling the embassy from Buenos Aires of Spain.
Yep,
So
yep.
it's kind of, yeah, like he's kind of he's a lot like us libertarians, Jeff. He's kind of an asshole, which can get you in trouble diplomatically. However, his foreign policy is not like American libertarians. Now, I might be a little bit more hawkish than you are, Jeff, but you did serve as a captain in the U.S. Army, so let's give it up to you that. Thank you for your service, sir. However, Javier Milei has not adopted the type of foreign policy that we see many American libertarians have. He's pro-West, he's pro-U.S., he's very much keen to join NATO. He wants to be a part of the NATO alliance. He's telling BRICS to flex. He's telling them to screw off. He doesn't want to have anything to do with Russia, India, China. He doesn't want to have anything to do with the quote-unquote bad guys of the world. He wants to build an alliance with the West, with the United States. And certainly that would be the kind of thing that would be good for the U.S., right? Dollarization would be good for the United States. But many of Javier Milei's critics here in the United States, his Yankee critics, say that that his foreign policy does not align with the kinds of principles that you might see from, Mises type people here in the U.S. What are your thoughts on Javier Milei saying things like he wants to join with NATO and sending helicopters to Ukraine, for example?
First, what a great question, man. This is a really interesting topic to me. Being a libertarian and a former military guy, as you said, and you and I have, having had so many debates historically, right, about the foreign policy question. I'll tell you, over the years, since you and I really last dove into this stuff, I think I have moderated a bit, or maybe come around a little bit more towards your end of the spectrum. Certainly I would never consider myself like a pro-war guy or like a neocon, obviously not, right? But maybe a realist. I obviously. So short story is I'm a fan. I'm a fan of what he's doing. I don't know if he has a choice as well. I mean, politically, given the spot he is in, I don't think he would have wanted to, but had he sort of said, screw the West, right? I'm going to go with the BRICS. I don't think he survives very long, right? So, but nevertheless, that's just politics. I mean, I don't think he's doing this for politics. I think he actually believes in at least the ideas of the West, right? Right? The ideas in freedom, the ideas of America, for example, being the shining city on the hill, right? Like this is stuff we have forgotten, I think. I'm certainly not a Mises guy. I actually, I can, for example, on Ukraine, for example, this is something I haven't really told a lot of people, but when that first broke out, in fact, I've told very few people. So breaking news, not really, because nobody cares. But when that first happened, within a couple weeks of the Russians invading the Ukrainian consulate in DC, the embassy, I think it's a consulate, it like basically volunteering to go over there, as just a veteran, to help, whatever that meant. Nothing ever came from that. I never heard back from them, and so nothing ever came. I'm not sad about that. Like in hindsight, probably that would have been stupid, to go over to Ukraine myself. But the point is, to me, there's no clear bad guys, good guys, right? And one could argue all day long about, well, the government in Ukraine is people. Interestingly enough, I was actually in Ukraine in late 2021. So we were talking about me being just in Argentina. A year or two prior, I was actually in Ukraine, in Lviv, in the western part of the country, randomly there I couldn't even tell you why, but I was there and I got to experience what partying with Ukrainians is like. Ukrainians is like.
Yeah, I was going to
And
say, I know why you were there. Some of the most beautiful women in the world, Jeffrey. Come on.
It was a really good trip. Actually, the short story is my old German nanny, Inga, bless her soul now, she's passed away. She was kind of like nearing the end. And so I went over to Germany to like see her one last time. And I was like in Germany and I was like, where do I go? Because like, I want to go somewhere I've never been. I was like, oh, I want to go to Ukraine. The crazy thing is like 5 months later is when the Russians invaded. So I just remember this. I remember like hanging out with Ukrainians and then like joking around about the Russians and joking around about like, oh yeah, they're going to invade, but like, we don't really give a shit. We're like, excuse me, we don't care. We got to live our lives. And then the Russians actually did it. And to me, like, obviously there's bad guys, there's good guys. There's a country that's trying to defend itself from being taken over by an aggressor. Can we have a debate about how much aid we should provide? Obviously, I'm not supportive of like US troops being on the ground. Obviously, I think we have to be, we have to look back and wonder whether or not our NATO policies and the Eastern expansion had something to do with Putin's response here. Like, I think we have to look in a mirror and I think we have to learn from the past and apply those lessons going forward like you would in any field. So maybe that makes me a realist. And
that's
I think
that's where I'm at too, Jeffrey. But because specifically Javier Milei, he seems to think that there are good guys and bad guys in this conflict. Yeah. He seems to think that the West are the good guys. He seems to admire the United States, want to build a stronger relationship with the West. He would like to apply for Argentina to be in NATO. He's signaling that he wants to be part of the Western Hemisphere's common market, and he wants to build trade relations with nations that are hostile powers to the United States. In sending aid and military helicopters, by the way, they got those military helicopters from Russia to Ukraine. He's sending those to Ukraine. He is signaling very clearly which side he is on. He's taking. And it might be that it's a realist position. It might be that he's like where I'm at and where you seem to be moving towards in regards to we have to deal with the reality of the world as it is, and we're not going to live in an anarcho-capitalist utopia anytime soon when it comes to the foreign policy question. But if that's in his best interests, it might be for economic reasons, but it might also be for national security reasons too, because you probably have heard the story about the incursions of Chinese fishing boats into Argentine waters. Have you not?
I haven't actually heard about that. No.
Okay. Well, we don't have to get into it too deeply, but the Javier Milei is looking to acquire some F-16 fighter jets in order to help police the borders of Argentina from illegal fishing that is occurring from Chinese boats that go into their waters, and they can't defend their own territorial integrity, which puts a lot of questions in regards to what would a libertarian military really look like? What would it be like? Maybe Javier Milei is getting ready to build that, and that's certainly a question that we have. But another thing that has really triggered the international scene, and certainly a lot of people here in the United States have turned their backs on Javier Milei, people who are of our ideological ilk to a large extent, people who accept Austrian economics, people who lionize Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek. They despise Javier Milei because he has also picked a side in the conflict between Israel and Gaza. The question of the conflict between Israel and Gaza is not one of maybe some guys are good on one side and a little bit bad on that side, and then on this one, he has come out openly and declared his support for the nation of Israel in defending themselves against the kind of terrorist attacks that Hamas engaged in on October 7th. So obviously a much more touchy subject, not one that we can kind of dwell in shades of gray or nuance. We're talking about the hot conflict happening right now between Israel and Gaza. He has staked a claim on one side. Your take on that?
Good for him, right? And of course, like, there's always nuance, right? And you're never going to see that in the headline. You're never going to see that in the talking heads arguing back and forth, right? Because they're trying to get clicks and say wild stuff. But yeah, good. I mean, again, I think that there are good guys and bad guys in this one, right? Now, if somebody wants to take a step back and look at the last 70 years of policy here, right, and look at the history of it, and the Israelis and the Palestinians and the different potential peace accords, but on the other hand, the different intifadas, right, and the invasions and almost annihilations of the Israeli and the Jewish people. I mean, the history goes both ways for sure. Like there's no doubt about it. And I have had this conversation more times than I can count. At the end of the day, like prior to October 7th, this question of like, well, what do you do? I don't know. I'm not Israeli. I'm not Jewish, right? I'm not Palestinian. I have spent time over there. I've spent time in the West Bank. Like, you know, I don't, the short answer is like, I don't know. There's a lot of different things at play, in particular resources, in particular water underneath the ground, right? But that's historic. That's looking back. That's historic. That's prior to October 7th. That's prior to Hamas crossing the border and murdering and raping and pillaging through, you know, the country of Israel, murdering upwards of 1,500 people, capturing 250 hostages, some of those American citizens, by the way, and then going back to Gaza and hiding behind those hostages and hiding behind innocent Palestinians.
I'm with you, Jeffrey. I'm with you 100%. Javier Milei absolutely agrees as well. But I have become something of a pariah in the libertarian movement.
This is wild to me. What are they saying? Forgive me. What are they advocating for?
You're not aware of the rampant anti-Semitism, the scourge of hate towards Jews and Israel that has occurred here since October 7th. You haven't paid attention to any of this.
I'm aware of it. You know, forgive me. I haven't paid so close attention to libertarian circles of late. So
Nobody
maybe you have to fill me in on this.
For me.
I have obviously seen a tremendous amount of rise of anti-Semitism on the left, right? Everyone has seen that on the college campuses, the Ivy League campuses, right? The pro-Hamas rallies. I have seen that. I have paid attention to that. That has irked me in my soul. And, you know, maybe not shocking, but like, God, at least surprising at least that they are vocal about it. I have not been paying attention to the libertarians.
Well, I think that probably speaks to the diminished influence that they have there, and why in desperation they reached out to have Donald Trump to speak at their convention coming up over Memorial Day to do absolutely anything that they can to have a stab at relevance. If people remember, in 2016, you were leading my presidential campaign at the time when the Libertarian Party was at its zenith and reached at least 3%, a little bit more for their national vote total. And now they're looking at potentially coming in fourth place for the first time since 1992 when Ross Perot took third place with 18% in the presidential election of what was that year? God, what did I just say? It was Ross Perot, 1992.
92.
So Donald Trump speaks at the Libertarian Party convention where they're nominating their own presidential candidate who no one will know, and probably many of them are going to end up voting for Trump, and many of them, the other people, are going to vote for Biden. I'll ask you who you're going to vote for, Jeff, but not today because we got to run. Is there anything else that you want to share on our show or with our listeners before we let you go today?
I love this topic. I'm a big fan of Milei. I encourage people to consider traveling down there to Argentina. It's a beautiful country, beautiful scenery, and amazing people. Like, big fan of Argentina. And I think the sky is the limit for those folks with Milei at the helm. So thanks for having me on, Austin.
Yep. Thanks, Jeffrey. Hopefully the next time that you and I go to Argentina, it'll be together and we can have a lot of fun. But I'm married now, so you get to go off and do all the fun bachelor stuff. All
LFG.
Right. All right. Have a good one, Jeffrey. Have a great day. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks.
Let's give him a round of applause. What do you say? Wake Up America show brought to you in part by Founding Flavors Coffee. Have you guys had a drink of delicious Founding Flavors coffee from apforlibertyshop.com yet? I know that you're going to love it if you tried it. Oh, check this out. I made this shirt over the weekend. I know we got a lot of our fellow Missourians this weekend, and my goal is to make shirts and products for people in their states who love liberty. And so, of course, I'm from Missouri, and I made Missouri's Liberty shirt this weekend with the cool St. Louis Arch. Missouri Liberty, established in 1821. You can get that shirt exclusively at apforlibertyshop.com. Our stained glass collection continues to be hot sellers. This weekend, we sold some beautiful glasses featuring our founding fathers, as well as some cool cutting boards. You can check those out at apforlibertyshop.com. Stephanie's new video, Hustling and Homemaking, premieres today at 9:05 a.m. Another reason to get excited and to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's AP, the number 4, apforlibertyshop.com. Peanut butter cookies. Yes, Steffi has a new show featuring her stories, balancing pregnancy, motherhood, homemaking, and keeping a career on the side. So if you want to watch the video today, as soon as the show is over, it premieres at 9:05 a.m. Central Time. So make sure that you come on over to apforlibertyshop.com, click to watch, and then it'll take you over to the video, which will premiere 32 minutes from right now. Okay, so head on over, apforlibertyshop.com. Why don't you get yourself some delicious Founding Flavors coffee while you're at it? Again, you can get this exclusively at apforlibertyshop.com. I'm going to go to John Miltimore here in just a moment, but brief little story. I was listening. Somebody sent me an email the other day telling me that my coffee was too expensive. They were chastising me and telling me how they could get coffee from one of the big box stores so much cheaper than they can get it for apforlibertyshop.com. Number one, take a look at that price. Number one, let's just remember this, that this includes shipping. So that's the price that you see is the price that you get. If you compare Founding Flavors to other premium brands online, they're going to show you a lower price. And then by the time you get through shipping, it's going to be more than that. Okay. So let's talk about that. And then number two, for those of you who have tried Founding Flavors coffee, you know it's premium. This is not the kind of stuff, you can't get this kind of stuff from your local big box store, okay? You're not going to be able to get Founding Flavors coffee at your local big box store. You just have to recognize that premium coffee is going to have a bit of a premium price. Now, you can get a discount on the coffee when you buy more than one, and when you buy more than one, the results stack. If you're the type of person who's already drinking Founding Flavors coffee, today would be a great day for you to sign up for the monthly subscription so that you don't have to remember. You can do a one-time purchase, but I recommend that you subscribe. You can do it every 1 month, every 2 months, every 3 months, every 2 weeks, ready to ship right now, and you'll get it delivered to your door. Look at this. These are verified independent reviews. Has become one of my favorite coffees. I ordered the whole bean. It's delightful. Light notes of caramel, not overpowering. Morning Java Needs really does the trick. Enjoy the coffee and supporting the AP for Liberty family. Box artwork is cool too. They decided to F around and find out. Everyday coffee drinker made me feel as American as rooftop Koreans with M14s defending their property in LA. I've been subscribing to my competitors for years, and I like their quality and price, but Austin's blends are a legit, enjoyable alternative, and the funds go straight into more entertainment and education for me anyway through the show. Recommended on all fronts. Going to plan to try all flavors. Decent beverage. Jefferson Java. Love this light roast coffee. 5 stars. View it at apforlibertyshop.com. Get yourself some Founding Flavors. Try a box today. And then real quick, before I go get John Miltimore, I'll show you guys the bonus content here real quick. Here's the thing about Founding Flavors. So people about the price, somebody complained about the price. Like, I can get it so much cheaper at the store, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can get coffee cheaper at the store. Here's the thing. I can't compete with Walmart or with Target. I can't compete. And so if your goal is to try and just get the cheapest coffee that you can, that's fine. I can't compete with those guys. And I'll just say this, that the goal is you have to, if you're a business owner and you're trying to be successful, you can't compete with Target and Amazon and all these guys at scale because they can sell a lot of products to poor people cheaply, okay? When you start a new business, you have to sell a small amount of products to rich people expensively. And that's the only way that you can actually make it as a business owner to get to where I would love to be. I'd love to be selling lots of coffee to people people cheaply. But I can't sell lots of coffee to poor people cheaply until I can build a business model where I can afford to buy lots of coffee in bulk so I can sell coffee to poor people cheaply, right? That's where I'm at. So it is more of a premium, and the coffee is much better tasting than what you get from your big box stores. I promise you that. And if you don't agree with me and you don't believe me, buy a box, come back and say, I didn't like it. It wasn't as good as what I have from the store, Austin, and I will buy it back from you. So you literally have no risk at all. You're either going to love the coffee or you're going to get your money back. Try Franklin's Electric Elixir if it's going to be your first one. That's one of my favorite blends. My number one favorite blend is Thomas's Pain. It's not a blend, actually. It's single origin. Thomas's Painkiller is a single origin Colombian roast. It's delicious. That if you're going to try that one, get that one over at apforlibertyshop.com because, again, you just can't get these coffees anywhere else. Only at apforlibertyshop.com. All right, let me go get John Miltimore. We're going to talk about an article he wrote about Uncle Hitler is up to no good again. Well, Why Uncle Adolf loved social justice. We're going to talk about that when we get back. Big brain time on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Another episode of our Wake Up America Show mini documentary series. This week's theme, we look at the times that real libertarianism has been tried. Today, we're diving into the fascinating tale of economic transformation that took place in Chile during the 1970s and 1980s, spearheaded by a group of economists known as the Chicago Boys. This story is a powerful example of how libertarian principles can reshape an economy. However, it's also a tale intertwined with the dark reality of a ruthless dictatorship. In the early 1970s, Chile was a country struggling with severe economic instability. Inflation was rampant, the economy was in disarray, and the political landscape was turbulent. Amidst this chaos, a group of Chilean economists, primarily educated at the University of Chicago under the tutelage of Milton Friedman and Arnold Harberger, emerged with radical ideas. They came to be known as the Chicago Boys. These economists were trained in the liberal economic theories of the Chicago School, which emphasized free markets, deregulation, and privatization. Initially, their ideas were largely ignored in Chile. That changed dramatically after the 1973 military coup that brought General Augusto Pinochet to power. Pinochet, despite being a ruthless dictator infamous for his brutal methods, including throwing communists out of helicopters, recognized the need for economic reform. He turned to the Chicago Boys to overhaul Chile's economy. They implemented a series of free market reforms detailed in a document known as El Ladrillo, or the Brick. The Chicago Boys' policies were bold and unprecedented. They slashed government spending, deregulated industries, and privatized state-owned companies. Their goal was to reduce inflation, stimulate economic growth, and integrate Chile into the global market. This approach, often referred to as shock therapy, was designed to jolt the economy back to life through rapid and sweeping changes. Initially, the reforms were painful. The GDP fell by about 15% by 1982, and income inequality surged, a shadow that still lingers over Chile today. However, over time, the Chilean economy began to recover and grow at an impressive rate. By the late 1980s, Chile was hailed as a model of economic reform, often referred to as the miracle of Chile. The success of these reforms caught the attention of global leaders like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, who admired and emulated Chile's policies. Free trade agreements, tax cuts, and structural adjustments became the cornerstones of conservative economic strategies worldwide. Today, Chile stands as one of the most prosperous countries in Latin America. Its transformation from economic chaos to stability and growth is a testament to the power of free market policies. However, the legacy of the Chicago Boys is complex. While they helped to turn the economy around, their association with Pinochet's brutal regime casts a long and dark shadow. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Thanks to everybody who purchased from the AP for Liberty Shop website today, made some purchases, and we even got some Rumble rants. Hi, Cecilia. Thanks for all that support. For that, you get the awesome mini documentary, which you just got to view, about the true story of the Chicago Boys, liberty economists who went to Chile, brought free market reforms, and, well, I guess you might say they were the Javier Milei of their day. They brought an economic miracle. They called it the miracle of Chile. And this whole week, our theme for the mini documentaries will be times that real libertarianism has been tried. So today we looked at Chile. Who knows where it could be tomorrow? Thanks so much for all of your support. That financial support definitely makes a big difference in helping us to bring you the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty, which is why my next guest joins us every Monday, because few people embody limited government more than John Miltimore from the Foundation for Economic Education. Miltimore Mondays, joining us live right now. Good morning, John. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, AP. How you doing?
Doing great, brother. Thanks so much for joining us here today and for being a regular guest on Mondays. I read your piece over the weekend about Uncle Hitler, as I like to call him. Well, Uncle Adolf, you know. as it is. Most people use his name as a pejorative, and I'm interested to have you share with us this article that you wrote over the weekend that came out on this weekend about why Adolf Hitler loved social justice. So we're going into big brain time here, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. I'll tell you really briefly, and then I'll let you run away with it. When I went to visit the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., I was shocked when I visited the propaganda exhibit and I saw a magazine that was called Social Justice. It was written by this guy here in the United States. They called him Father Coughlin. He was very, very prominent here in the U.S. Big Hitler guy. Loved Hitler. Had millions of followers here in the U.S. Before it became very politically incorrect to Sig Heil and to to do all that kind of stuff that old Uncle Adolf did in Germany. So I'm curious your thoughts, because you wrote an article that says Adolf Hitler loved social justice. That would be very triggering to say something like that in many circles here in the U.S. Why do you say that? Why do you say something so brave? So go ahead, John, take it away.
Well, no, it's true, and it was one of those things. I had been vaguely aware of this, for years, but I recently was reading Rainer Ziedelman's book on Hitler in his philosophy. It's called Hitler's National Socialism. And as I was reading it, I didn't really, I did start to appreciate, like, this wasn't just an idea for Hitler, or just some language. This was central to his whole political philosophy of change in Germany. And he first used this phrase, social justice, which is soziale Gerechtigkeit in German. And he uses it at a speech in Munich in 1920. And at the time, Hitler's still a very young man. But you see it throughout, all the way through the 20s and into the 30s. He's always talking about social justice. And what he's really talking about is destroying the power structures in Germany, so that he's using some ideas that I think some on the right would find appealing, not just the left. He's talking about things like very close to meritocracy, making sure everybody can appreciate German culture and take advantage of it, and that he talks about the welfare state where everybody has at least something. And he was using ideas, I think, that he was describing something that does sound reasonable, that I think a lot of people would say, well, that is good. And he talked about going after something else, privilege, which means privilege. And he wanted to attack privilege in Germany. And he eventually gets power, and he's allowed to do so. And there was no more, in his view, there was no more privileged class, of course, than the Jews. The Jews had done, in Germany, many of them were entrepreneurs, many of them were successful. And I think he successfully was able to, there was a lot of this antagonism following World War I, and he had his scapegoat. And he did this all through the lens of social justice, of making Germany better for everyone, and just sort of leveling the playing field.
It's fascinating to me, and I spent the weekend, whenever I have like 4 or 5 hours of mowing time to kill, I typically listen to podcasts. And this weekend, I listened to a podcast that was a couple of hours long, explaining Hitler's socialism and his views on the economy, his belief in this, what they call the shrinking markets theory, and as the sort of the impetus, his belief in economic fallacies, which led him to eventually advocate for Lebensraum, and for the invasion of Poland and Czechoslovakia, and eventually, of course, Russia, because of his belief in failed economic thinking. And then also now these artificial intelligence has started to take Hitler's speeches, which had been unintelligible, and if you wanted a translation, you would have to read it. Now you can actually listen to his speeches in his own voice, in his own words in English, to understand better what it was that he really was fighting for and his deeper economic thinking. You can understand why people would have been swayed, because he was a deep thinker on many issues. But like many intelligent people in the world, they're very good at justifying their stupid beliefs. Sort of like during COVID-19, we had some of the most brilliant minds in the world wearing masks while inside vehicles. So when it came to Hitler's analysis of what was going on with the German economy, it was kind of like Bernie Sanders. He seemed to understand that the problems that they faced during the Weimar years of Germany, but his prescriptions were like Bernie Sanders, completely verkauft, right? it was this idea that they needed to implement he had been a Marxist for a brief period. It was like he actually got elected as a Marxist for, I believe, a short period of time, from like 1920 to 21. He spent time as a Marxist. Still was a committed socialist.
Same with
But
Mussolini.
yeah, he's the same with Mussolini. Yes, he was, but he renounced Marxism itself as a Jewish philosophy. So his National Socialism was an Aryan philosophy, and that's what he constructed. But Hitler's National Socialism was socialism, was it not?
100%. And if you go back, I did an article on Goebbels about a year ago, and Goebbels especially, speech after speech after speech, he defends the socialism, of National Socialism. And when you say it's like Bernie Sanders, I think the obvious appeal here, the thing that really does bring them together, they're tapping into a very human trait, and that is envy. It's one of the deadly sins, right? Envy. And that is what, whether it's Bernie Sanders or Perón or Hitler or whoever you want, they're tapping into that envy, and they look at society and they say they have too much. This is not right. And that is, for thousands of years we talked about justice, and that was a concept that really, Aristotle wrote about, many great thinkers, but we put this word social in front of that. And we hear that word everywhere today. And I think some people you have to, social justice sounds good. You have to believe in this. I think Thomas Sowell had it right. He wrote a book about it in the late 90s called, The Quest for Cosmic Justice. And what it is, it's a kind of utopianism. And it looks at society and it says, something's not right here in society, and we need to fix it. And because it's a societal problem, we need government to actually lead the fix. And what you end up with is you're constantly chasing this utopianism, like society, no matter what it is, or we always need to try to make the level that playing field. It's really like check your government power, because you're always going to have inequity in any society that's remotely free. Some are going to have more, some are going to have more privilege, some are going to have more wealth, some are going to be more beautiful. And if you look at society and you see there's something wrong with that, the rest of people are strong to come in and say, I will fix this. There is something wrong, I will fix it. And whether it's somebody, like Hitler or Perón or Hugo Chavez or all these people that talk about social justice, it ends the same. And it's because what they're using to fix the problem is government. And it's going to be a statist answer.
Now, John, we have I don't think he would consider me to be bashing him by saying this, but we have a white nationalist in the chat, and his name is Whitey White 14, and he has a point of view on Hitler that I would love for you to respond to. He says, check out what was going on in Germany in the 1920s. Germany was a complete cluster F, wheelbarrows full of money to buy bread, and mothers and daughters have to become hookers, debt enslavement. Germany was an economic miracle under Hitler, and everyone recognized that at the time, from a crumbling country to restoration within a few years. How would you respond to something like that, John?
I would put that Hugo Chavez was the same thing when people were saying that early in Chavez's term, right? Like we were talking literally the Venezuelan miracle. They finally made socialism work. And you had this very, very short period of time where Hitler's in power, where people are like, hey, look at how great this is. Well, what were they doing? Like you had so many of the people that were creating wealth were leaving. The Nazis were taking wealth from people. It was all built on a house of cards, and it was plunder. And we know how these societies end. You can plunder for a while, but that's not wealth creation. And Hitler's Germany was not creating wealth.
And they did plunder. They stole wealth.
Literally plundered.
Yeah. I mean, there's a really good book. I think they made a movie out of it called Monuments Men, where they told the story of the American soldiers whose job it was to find all of the plundered Nazi loot, the artwork and the treasure and the jewels that they stole on their rampaging through Europe. And of course, as they started shipping off Jews to the camp, a lot of the wealth that they plundered were from the people that they sent off to the camps as well. So yes, you can get rich if you steal, and you can sit on a throne of bayonets, but not for long.
But I will say he has one point here. Things in Germany after the war were really bad, and I think like the whole stab in the back thing. The German people, when they surrendered during World War One, they didn't really realize it. They thought we were gonna, like, okay, it's an armistice. They didn't think they were gonna get shivved in the Versailles Treaty, and they kind of did. And they piled up this war debt on Germany, and the German people, like who had fought this bloody war, millions dead for years. Now they're getting stuck for all the reparations. That did lead to all this resentment that Hitler was able to feed on, and he didn't sell it to them as resentment, though. We talked about this on Friday, me and some colleagues, for a little while. They sold it to them as righteousness, like, this is us, this is what you are owed. You are entitled this. This is wrong. We are going to fix this by restoring Germany to where if you getting rid of all these class structures and privilege that are preventing the good Germans from rising. So it wasn't just the resentment they were feeding them, but the sense of righteousness that this is what's going to happen, and that's what makes it all the more dangerous when people aren't just a sense of wrong, but a sense of self-righteousness that's going to allow them to do even awful things to correct something that is social injustice.
A lot of this article that you wrote at fee.org, which is titled "Why Hitler Loves Social Justice," is a discussion on the question of if the means are justified by the ends. And you write in here that Leonard Read, who is the founder of FEE, said ends, goals, aims are but the hope for things to come, not reality, from which may safely be taken the standards for right conduct. Many of the most monstrous deeds in human history have been perpetrated in the name of doing good, in pursuit of some noble goal. They illustrate the fallacy that the ends justify the means. Well, Hitler, of course, disagreed. He didn't seem to worry much about the means, did he?
No, in fact, there was something I read, and this came from Ziedelman's book as well. Hitler looked at it as his greatest triumph, that he taught the world, don't worry about the means, just focus on the ends. And there's a quote in there where this discussion came. It was a cabinet meeting, and he was speaking to Goebbels, and that haunted me, because I remember reading, what Leonard Read was saying, and it struck me. It was a eureka moment. I'm like, that's the answer. Like, and you can go back, writers and philosophers were talking about this. Dostoevsky was writing about this in Crime and Punishment, because you had this kind of left-wing fanatic who said, I'm going to make the world better by murdering this landlady, who's a really awful person. And the whole book of Crime and Punishment is asking that question. Is an evil okay if it's perpetuated that it's going to bring about some greater good? And the older I live, I can't agree with Read anymore. When you are trying to use to create some greater good by using vile means, you're going to end up with a rotten pie, right? You're going to get bad fruit. And I think the best example is when we just lived through COVID. Like, we were trying to do all these, we're trying to protect people, but we're going to use force at every turn. And we're going to use threats and force. We're going to make you do stuff. And it was a disastrous few years. And to me, the lesson is no, like he had it right. Like, even if we all have good ends, I really think we do. I think even, you can take a Stalin, well, maybe not a Stalin, but you can take like a Pol Pot. Same thing. He was trying to do good. He was a Marxist, educated in Paris. He believed in these ideas, and he's like, no, we're going to create a great society through these ideas. And what you have the Khmer Rouge, and you have the killing fields, and they just slaughter everyone. But it was for a noble end, and he said we just got the methods wrong a little bit, but we were pursuing something good. And so listen to Leonard Read. When you're doing something in your personal, most of us will never be commanding armies or leading governments. But even in your own life, look at the means you're using. If you're gonna, if they're vile, you're probably going to end up with something bad. Don't justify your actions by the ends you seek.
I'm John, bringing up some Dostoevsky this morning. Big brain time for sure. John Miltimore from the Foundation for Economic Education. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners or plug before we let you go today, sir?
No, just check out the article. It's on fee.org right now, and I'm writing on Substack, The Take by John Miltimore.
Take by John Miltimore. John, Mondays with Miltimore, always fun. Thanks for writing that article over at fee.org. I highly recommend people follow you over there and read your Substack because, where would we be without your thoughts on the world today? We appreciate you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again back next Monday.
Hey, great being with you, AP. Thanks for having me on.
You too. Have a great week. That's John Miltimore. Give him a round of applause. What say you? I liked the comment that I saw from Sign of Jonah a little bit earlier. What did he say? He said about social justice. He says, the word justice doesn't need a qualifier if it's true justice. Yes. Brilliant. Kermode, Bear, Will Run Right. You guys doing good? Did you enjoy the show today? I felt like it was a good show. Felt lots of energy, kind of flowed topic to topic. Bonus content was really good stuff. I feel like you guys are just really jiving with me. The Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by listeners and viewers like you. When you join the show and you're here with us live and you're clicking the like button and you're clicking follow and you're joining our locals community and you're donating $5 a month through Rumble or at wakeupamericashow.com, or you're making purchases from our sponsor, or you're going to apforlibertyshop.com, you're buying coffee, you're helping to build the next generation of Liberty Media. So we say thank you. And for that, we thank you. Thanks, Tosh.0. Sarah for Liberty, nice to see you. Hope you'll come back again soon. Andy Opperman, Kermode, Bear, all of our friends here at Freedom. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Exit to the Grift Shop. Get your box of coffee today. Help little baby P for Liberty with her scholarship fund. And we'll see you guys here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to Wake Up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at apforlibertyshop.com. So head to apforlibertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars. ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's revolutionary roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's patriotic perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks, just pure patriotic pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your Founding Flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.